interactive session and I would like you to equally participate in this session. As the session will progress, I would request, in fact, encourage you to ask any question, or do you have any query, or you think you have a doubt, you can just simply interrupt me and then we can proceed to have that discussion. Right? Although I will be doing most of the talking here, but understand this as an interactive session where we are engaged together. Alright, so before we even begin with what is stress and how to deal with it and how to cope up with it, how to manage with it, let's first understand, let's first see what is our attitude towards stress, what is our demeanor, what is our relationship with stress. Don't we, when we think that the situation would be stressful, when we think that we would face some amount of pressure, don't we just simply avoid that situation or try to run away from that situation, or in fact even see what would be the ways in which we would avoid, what would be the ways in which we can sort of escape this situation. So our relationship with stress is actually one where we would avoid it, where we would like to not indulge with it, or at least stay away at a distance from it. And then there is a stress that we have to inevitably bear, where we cannot just avoid, where it is, and so we have to simply put up with it, right? And that is our situation. We have the stress that there is in our life. Most of it we can avoid it, but the one which we cannot avoid, we just simply choose to put up with it. That it is simply there. And so, how does that happen then? How do then we begin to put up with it? Don't we look for a relief? Don't we look for a certain pleasure? Don't we look for a certain stress buster to get away from the situation, to get away from the stress that we have to put up with? We then move into the opposite direction. Here is our stress. Here is the situation which is pressurizing, which I do not simply like being with. And then there is this relief. Then there is this pleasure, this stress buster that I go to as a result of this stressful situation that I am in. Right? That's what most of the time happens. And then what all are these escapes that we look for? We would look for to go on a vacation, we would look for to go at a gathering, then we would look for to be at a certain party, or to just have a weekend all together. So these would be some ways where we would sort of distract ourselves or get away from the stress that we are currently experiencing. Right? All our parties, all our enjoyment, all our celebrations are simply to get away from the stress that we are facing, to at least have a sigh of relief, that at least finally there is a place where we can release ourselves, there is a place where we can, feel at rest. So that is the situation. There is this stress, and then there are these points of relief. So these are the 2 points between which our life usually oscillates. There is this stress and there are these points of relief. And that is what we see then. There are 2 companies offering us, get away to this travel destination, spend some weekend, spend a week here, and we'll help you to enjoy most of your time. Then there are these shopping complexes which would offer us, some discounts that, get this product, buy this cloth, buy this appliance, buy this electronics, and that is how probably you would relieve yourselves. And then there would be different means where we would simply find that they become the crutch. They become a sort of way that get us out of our stressful situations, that get us out of the pressure that we are constantly feeling. So is it the relief that we go to? Is it the stress buster that we go to simply an escape from the situation that we are in. And that situation is of probably frustration, of stress, of a certain pressure. And if we continue to move and to run, to escape from this situation where we always have this burden, this pressure, then we will find that we will just continuously move between these 2 points. We would be stressful, we would be anxious, we would feel a certain pressure, and then to release it, to get away from it, we will find that we need to have an escape, that we need to have a release. And after relieving ourselves, after having indulged in certain amount of pleasure, after enjoying ourselves, we will then find, okay, then let's go back to this situation where there is again this certain pressure, where there is again this certain stress, and then again we go on to pleasure. So this cycle moves just in same direction, where we are probably feeling some sort of anxiety, we are probably feeling some sort of pressure, where we are basically uncomfortable, where we are at not at ease, and then we move on to the things that will give us ease. So we never really respond to our stress, we would never really respond to the situation of dis-ease that we feel. We just simply look for a certain pleasure. We would simply look for a certain enjoyment and then just keep on repeating the same cycle again and again, again and again. That is mostly our life is. But shouldn't we first find out how did we come upon this situation where we feel this pressure, where we feel this anxiety, where we feel this stress? Shouldn't we first address that? And to address that, we have to first understand how does this stress come about? How does this stress enter in our life? And what even exactly is stress? Isn't stress just a contact between two different states, between two different objects? If you would look in terms of objects, you would find that when two things come close together and they are in contact with each other, that is the point of stress. And so diamonds are usually formed with a lot of amount of pressure when they when they feel that pressure on them. Diamonds, and you would find even an iron piece, if you would hit it with a hammer, if you continue to hit on that hammer, you would find that the iron piece is now beginning to glow. And the point of contact with that iron piece is the point of stress that is because of the relationship between these two. And so then, but we find, and then there, if you take two rocks together and then rub them, there is a certain fire, there is a certain spark. And in all of these situations, we find that there are, if we put a lot of pressure, there is a diamond. If we rub two rocks together, there is a spark. If we take a hammer and throw it down a piece of iron and constantly try to do that, there is a certain light, there is a certain red glow. And when in these situations of pressure, something emerges from them. But in our situation, that's not the case. In our situation, there is nothing shiny, there is nothing glowy that really emerges from the point of stress. All we have in our moments of stress, in our moment of pressure, is frustration, is a certain even amount of fear, is a sense of feeling this pressure, even anxiety. So the stress that we feel, it makes us uncomfortable. You even feel stress when you wake up from your sleep. So there is your state when you were asleep, and then there is this wakeful state, right? And the transformation between the two, the change between the two, is a point of stress also. Nobody just wakes up feeling alive and wakes up feeling completely rejuvenated. There is a certain resistance, there is a certain dis-ease that we feel, right? So that dis-ease is that point of stress that we feel. So you would find that mostly in our life, there are moments of stress always present. But then the stress that we feel, the mental stress, that mental stress actually results in a sort of fatigue. That mental stress results in a sort of pressure that we feel, in a sort of anxiety. It leaves a residue. It bothers us. Most of the stress that we feel doesn't bother us, but that mental stress, whenever we feel it, it begins to makes us uncomfortable. It will bother us, right? So, what is then the stress that which would not leave residue, which would not have an adverse effect? So then there are two types of stress. Understand this. There is a clean stress and then there is an unclean stress, a polluted stress. Just like there are two sources of energy. You must have heard of clean energy, right? And then there is the pollutant energy, which is the fossil fuel energy. So the fossil fuel energy would pollute the environment, would leave residue, would you could just simply see that how polluting it is for the environment. But the clean energy would not leave any residue, would just simply be clean. And so, if we closely look, there are then these two types of stress. There is this clean stress, and then there is this stress which is polluted, which leaves a residue. And our experience is mostly with this second type of stress, which leaves a residue, which leaves us feeling, which leaves us a sense with a feeling of which bothers us, which gnaws at us, which disturbs us, which keeps us at a disease. So, how is one to have this clean stress? And how can one avoid this stress which is basically a pollutant, which bothers us, which makes us uncomfortable, which even makes us restless, which even makes us anxious, fearful? How can we tackle, how can we understand this stress, and what is it that would give us this clean stress in our life, which would have no residue, which would have no amount of pressure? It would still be a situation of stress, because stress is constant in one's life, but then that stress would be worth taking. That stress would be something would not bother us. At the end of the day, that stress would not leave us feeling restless, would not leave us feeling with a state of anxiety, with a state of fear, with a state of dullness. But the stress that we experience leaves us with these things, leaves us with a certain anxiousness, leaves us with a certain anxiety, leaves us with all sorts of fears and a certain feeling of resistance. We would resist this second type of stress, which basically leaves a residue, which is a pollutant. How does then this stress come about? And how can we move towards this stress which is clean? And that is the point where we would have to ask ourselves that how does it happen that we simply agree to put up with the stressors that we see in our life? If you would be going on into the places of work, right? After this, your degree is over, you are done with your course, you would be going on in the job market and trying to find some jobs. You would be going to joining a workplace. And what is that principle then that where on the basis of which you would join those workplaces? You would go on and do the jobs that you would go on to do. Shouldn't we first take a step back and see what are those motivators, what are those factors that drive us to work, that would drive us to the position, to the market that we are going into? And should they come under a certain influence? Should they be a result of a certain pressure? Should they be a result of a certain trend following that we are simply going behind? But most of us, the situation with most of us is like that only. The jobs that we will take, the roles that we would go on to do, would be a result of a certain pressure, a certain restlessness that we would feel of by not securing a place for ourselves, by not having that job that we think that we should have after completing our course. And because of this nervousness, because of this compulsive nature of finding a work for ourselves, we will end up in a position, we would land up in a certain job that we probably then begin to again resist or not be able to enjoy or completely engage in. And then that's how you will see that most of our workplaces would be like. We would join a workplace, and as soon as we join, we will find that we are beginning to look at how many holidays are there, what are those public holidays that you would find rest in. You would enter your work day, and then you would begin to see, okay, when does the clock strike 5 so that I can come out of it. You would wait for the weekend, let the weekend come, and so at least there would be a sense of relaxation, there would be a sense of relief. That is the story of our workplaces. That is the story of the jobs, the roles that we would take up, where we will find that we would be okay. In fact, we would cherish if we get to do less work, if we get to do not that much amount of work that would probably put us under stress, would probably put us under some amount of pressure. We would like to have less and less amount of work. So then how have we condemned ourselves into this situation, into this equation, where work has suddenly become a punishment for us, where work has simply become a thing where we have to do it, where we are putting up with it, where we have to bear it. And in situation like this, stress, the polluted stress, which would leave you with feeling a certain amount of pressure, which would leave you feeling a certain amount of dis-ease, uncomfortability, this stress is inevitable. It would leave you with that residue because you resist what you are doing. You don't really enjoy it. It would simply tire you. And that's how most of our work is. We get into this state of a complete tiresome state where we detest the work that we begin to do. And that is what burnout is. Why do most of our workplaces, there are employees that they are perpetually burnt out? Burnout is simply a result of having nervously, restlessly just going into a job without even thinking, just because the job promised a certain amount of package, just because a job promised a certain amount of money at the end of the month, we simply join that place or that organization without thinking what is the work that we are going to do. Have we even understood what is it that we will be involved in day-to-day tasks? But we under simply just an influence, because of some pressure, because of a sense of this duty and responsibility, take up these roles and find that we are simply not at ease with those roles. We find that we simply want to get away from the work that we are doing. And that is what our life will become. This is the story of our relationships also. This is the story of our workplaces also, where we just put up with things, where we do not wait, look, observe, patiently watch, and then come upon something which is our own discovery. All our relationships, all our choice of work, the activities that we do, is simply a result of influences that we get from the environment. Is simply a result of a conditioning that we have simply adopted throughout our life. There is nothing original that we do. There is nothing authentic that we do. All of our roles, all of our relationships, all our choice of work is because of a certain influence. Is because the majority was doing it. Is because everybody else was going into that field or going into that organization. We also just simply followed what the majority was doing. We simply also followed what other 10 people were doing. We never really looked and observed our own life, we never really thought for ourselves that what is it that we really want to do. Even college admissions are like that. We just simply go on to admit ourselves in institutions that we really don't know where they will take our life ahead. We just simply, under an impression, with a compulsive urge, join any institute because it promises a certain placement. Also, think about it. How have we come to this point where we would join those institutions that would have a highest amount of placement rate? Isn't the role of an institution to provide you knowledge? Isn't the role of an institution to make you learn about things? How has institutions come up with these responsibilities to place you on this job market? After they have provided you the knowledge they could, after they have made you understood the things that they could, their job is done, right? But no, somehow, because we think that it is through knowledge that we would go on to secure some position, it is through education that we will go on to secure these roles in the job market, which would pay the highest or which would pay at least a decent amount. We have simply made education a vehicle, a way to have these roles or have these opportunities where we would have these high paying packages and then we would feel secure. We are inherently insecure and then we think that it is through these organizations, through the choices that we make, that we will find security, that we will find a sense of comfort within. Being insecure, all our search for security then leads us to places that inevitably make us insecure. Which basically means if you think that your security is in a job and in your personal life, if you think that your security is in a relationship or is in someplace else, is in an ideology, you would see that it is these same places because of which you really feel insecure. Even after getting the job, you thought that this job would provide me security. That job alone becomes your point of insecurity. That relationship that you thought would keep me secure, that relationship alone becomes your point of insecurity. Most of our search for security leads us into further insecurity because we are not ready to find out, to look, to observe our own life. We will find that most of the time there is this insecurity in our life, there is a sense of disease in our life, there is this perpetual stress that we feel in our life. There is nothing which would rejuvenate us, there is nothing which would refresh us, there is nothing that we really feel joyous about. All that we do or engage our life in is a sense of duty, is with a sense of a burden. We do not really enjoy the work that we do. We do not really love the work that we do. And so that is why the work that we do burns us out. That is why the work that we do puts us under a lot of stress. The stress that leaves us with anxiety, with fear, and with a sense of dis-ease within. That is why we have to understand and first look for ourselves that how, because the work that you are going to do, the job role that you are going to involve yourself in, the work that you are choosing yourself for, that is the work that you have to spend your entire life with. You have to spend from your morning till night with the work that you are doing. And if we do not think, if we are not in love with it, it will simply become a punishment for us. We will find that what are those ways, what are those places that would keep me away from this work. I would, at least on the surface, I would claim that I enjoy the work I do, I like the work I do, but inherently I will find that I keep on looking for the places that would get me away from this work, that would get me away from the roles and responsibilities that are assigned to me. And that is why you will find the employees are mostly looking for where is the holiday calendar, where is the next holiday, where is the next outing, when is the work day going to end. That would become a perpetual struggle. So we have to be willing to experiment, to understand, to live with uncertainty, to not be sure of ourselves. And as being a young person, that is so difficult. That is, we struggle, that is something that we really struggle with. We are unable to see for ourselves that what is it that we can pick as a point of work for us. What is that field, or where is that place that I can go to and really enjoy that. And so we have to be then willing for experimenting. We have to then test. We have to involve ourselves completely in the things that we are doing. We have to look at the world. We have to look at ourselves. What is our situation and what is the world, and what is it then I can choose as work for myself? What is the field that I can go into? Not simply because it has a high placement, not simply because it has a good scope in future, not simply because it pays me good money, but it really answers, it really addresses me completely. And until I don't have that love, until I don't have that sense of closeness, until I haven't discovered for myself the work that I want to do, all my work would become a punishment, would become a sense of burden for me. And that is the situation that we will condemn our life with. That we will always resist, that we will always look for pleasure, that we will always look for a relief. We would continue to see that when we will always look towards the future, when is the play, how can I feel excitement, how can I feel a certain sense of relief, where can I get a certain amount of pleasure from. I will always seek for pleasure, I will always seek for excitement, I will always seek for places that offer me some kind of enjoyment. Because deep down within me, I am restless, I am anxious, I am stressful. I am not traveling for the sake of traveling. I am not traveling because I like exploring or I like visiting new places. I am traveling because I am actually tired and sick of the life that I am currently living, and I want a change of scenery. And that is why I travel. My travel is out of a desperation, not out of enjoyment, not out of a sense of exploration. My holidays are not to learn about something. My holidays are not about understanding, reading, observing myself. My holidays are simply a gap between, or a break in the life that I am currently living. The shopping that I am doing, the marketplaces that I am visiting, I am not visiting because I need it. I am visiting those shopping places, those marketplaces, because I want a certain sense of relief from the life that I am living, the dullness that my life is, the boredom that prevails in my life. I want a certain break from that. And that is why I am going to shop. That is why I am going to the market. I don't need the product that I am buying. I am simply buying it because it would gratify me. It would make me believe that the life I am living is not entirely wasteful, is not entirely uncomfortable, is not entirely unlivable. And through these things, I would convince myself that yes, these are the things that makes life livable. My pleasures, my escapes, the trips that I go on to, my celebrations. If your work is rejuvenating you, if your work is a joy for you, then you will see that you don't need to seek celebrations out of it, that you don't need to seek some other stress busters out of it, that you are not waiting for some weekend always, that as soon as Monday comes, you are not gasping with a sense of resistance that, again Monday, and okay, let's wait for Friday until as soon as Friday comes, then it becomes okay, Friday. Then we are enjoying the fact that it is Friday only. This whole equation that we are so become used to of gasping on Monday and then enjoying and feeling a sense of delight when there is Friday. This is the result of the life that we are currently leading, where the work that we are doing is not fulfilling us, doesn't have any meaning, is not serving a sense of purpose for ourselves. It is simply there to occupy our time. It is simply there to just continue our life the way as it is going. There is nothing really alive in the work that we are doing. It is just a sense of duty or a sense of out of compulsion that we are doing the work that we are currently involved in. So we have to wait, see, observe, patiently watch that what is it that we can do in our life, and not go up in a hurry, and not just simply plunge into action out of our restlessness. We have to be able to experiment, test out what is it that we would like to do, what is it that we must do, and that is then becomes your calling. Calling is something that you would must do. It is not something that you want to do out of some interest, out of some whim, or out because this is your hobby, so you want to make it as a career. It becomes really important for you that it will become your breath. As breathing is important for your body, your calling would become a point of joy, a point of must. It would become something that you would must do, because without it, your life would appear to be meaningless. And we have to then find what is our calling, that we can spend our life with, that we can really enjoy thoroughly doing. That is then work. Work is not simply going to the office and thinking that waiting for the time to get over and then coming to home and then waiting for another sort of pleasure in the evening and then going around the market only to repeat the cycle again. That's how not work is supposed to be. And so it becomes important for us to tackle, to address this question that what is it that we will be doing our entire life. Otherwise, the stress would simply eat you up from within, would simply not allow you to live a fuller life. Your stress would not be the clean stress that we talk about. Your stress would become a point of anxiousness for you. It would become something that you would keep on resisting, you would keep on avoiding. And then this is why we have to silently ask ourselves, what is the stress that we are really ready to take up? And it is a clean stress that then you would invite, that you would welcome, because that would be worth taking, because the decision that you have come upon, your own discovery, is authentic to you, is original. It is not because of some pressure. It is not because 10 people have told you that this career place has a good scope, or this job role would give you, would promise you good benefits, etc. Outer influences would not become the reason for you to select the work that you are choosing yourself for. It would come from within. It would be your own discovery. You would have come upon originally through experiment, through testing, through finding out, through actively involving yourself in your own life. And at at that point there would be no confusion. And how is it that we make decisions then? Decision making is basically that we have these options in our life and then we have to sit and ponder. What is the option that would be best for me? Which is the option that would promise me these amounts of benefits? Or what is the option that I would go for that would be best suited for me? These are the parameters on which we make our decisions, right? This is what this sort of equation or this sort of picture to make a decision would never lead you to the right decision, because right decision you will find that simply comes. Right decision would simply be in front of you when you have actively involved yourself in your life, when you have experimented with the things that you want to experiment with, when you have tested out, when you have been uncertain and found out for yourself that what is it that is worth doing. In fact, you would have gone into your own life, you would have understood your own emotions, you would have understood how the mind really works, how you are prone to these lot of influences, how you are prone to your own conditioning. After that, you would find that what is right for you, what you really want to do simply is there. You don't have to exercise your thought. You don't have to churn the wheel of reasoning. You don't have to just sit and brood over what is the right option for me. Right option would simply present itself. It would simply emerge from your own understanding, from your own active involvement in your life, from that experimentation that you have involved yourself in. And that's how really good decisions come about, where you don't actively have to involve yourself in choosing what is the right option. Because the right option, because of your rigorous testing, experimenting, finding out, search, just presents itself to you. You don't have to bear the burden of choosing the right option. You don't have to bear the responsibility of choosing what is right for you. Right decision is a result of your immersion in your own life. Right decision comes to you when you have taken the burden of understanding, of actively involving yourself in your own life. You don't have to just then scramble for options and scramble for the benefits and what is really good for you. What is good for you is not based on an assumption. What is good for you, the other would not tell you. What is good for you would not be the result of your conditioning. It would not be a result of the influence that have acted upon your life. What is good for you would be your own discovery. What is good for you is not something that would be attractive, that would be shiny, that you just simply follow, that you just simply go behind. What is good for you would be your own discovery through testing, through asking questions, through even doubting yourself. And then what is good for you comes. You cannot just simply assume that this is good for me and then go behind it. Haven't you in your own life, in the past, thought that this might be good for you and then regretted it later? Haven't some relationships been like that? Haven't some purchases, some decisions been like that? So we will find that we really don't know what is good for us, that we really have no idea what is actually beneficial for us. All our sense of what is good for us and what is beneficial for us comes from our influences, comes from what others are doing, comes from what is in demand. And we simply think, yeah, that probably that thing is good for us. What is good for you would come out of questioning, would come out of finding out, would firstly come out of understanding who you are. Because if you think you are probably from a middle class background, then what is good for you will become the thing that will promise you the more amount of money, because you have assumed yourself to be a middle class person, and it is your middle class economic identity that will begin to influence your decision. You would always find yourself choosing those options that would probably take you a class higher, that would probably promise you some better economic returns. And then don't we see it for ourselves then, that how our one identity begins to dictate our every other decision, begins to dictate our every choice. Who we are simply becomes that thing which chooses what is right for us. And that is why we have to find what is right for us. What is right for you cannot come from what has been going on from the past. It cannot be a thing of tradition, because this has been going on in the family, so you also take up that job because some other people told you that this is right for you, and that's how that thing becomes right for you also. That's not how things work. What is really good would be thoroughly good for you, would be good in a larger picture, would not just be limited. It would simply be an expression of your understanding. It would not come out of some influence, some conditioning. That is why you have to test out. You have to doubt. You have to begin to question that the things that I find attractive, that I think, that the things I incline towards, the things that I think are good for me, are they really good for me? Or I have just simply assumed? Or because 10 other people are doing the thing, that is why that thing has become good for me? Does that how we will find real goodness for ourselves? We have to actively see how biased we are, how prejudiced we are. And it is from our own biases, our own conditioning, our own notions of what is good for us, comes all our idea of goodness. We think that let us first organize our life in the outside world. We think let us first put our lives orderly in the outside environment, and through the order in the outside environment, there we would establish an order within also. We think let me have a family, let me have a job, let me have a secure position in society, let me have some possessions, and then probably inwardly also I would be happy. Then probably inwardly also my life would be orderly. But you would find that order does not come that way. That you may have your possessions, you may have your things that you thought would give you satisfaction and would keep your life in order, you would still find that inwardly something is still missing. You are still craving for a complete satisfaction. You are still discontented within. And then this discontentment can only be addressed when you go inwards. It is not something which would automatically come about when you have put things in order outside. The outside order won't become the order that is within. To put things orderly, inwardly, rightly, you have to first understand where is this dissatisfaction comes from. Where is my own state of this disinterest comes from. And from this state only we find that we do all our actions. We seek happiness, we seek pleasure because we are unhappy, because we are dull within. That is why we would seek pleasure in the outside world. And it is this dull state within that we have to doubt, that we have to inquire about. And it is fine that one is discontented. It is fine that one is dissatisfied. because that is our inherent state. We are perpetually inwardly dissatisfied. We are perpetually inwardly discontented. And it is that discontentment within. When we stay with it, when we look at it, when we understand it, from this looking, seeing, watching and understanding, there would come something that would finally address it. From this understanding alone, we can address the dissatisfaction, the perpetual state of discontentment that we carry within. Otherwise, all our life would simply be an oscillation, a movement between pain to pleasure, from stress to relief. And it would be a complete cycle. We would be stressed at our workplaces, we would be stressed in our relationships, and then we will seek for pleasure. Then we find, okay, where is the place where I can get some sort of relief? And then again the cycle will continue. And so it is upon us then that we just simply want to continue with this cycle, or we want to break it, or we really want to put a stop to it and see for ourselves that how can we not continue in this cycle? How can we just simply not oscillate like a pendulum between what is stressful to us and then what becomes relief to us? We only indulge in the things that are relieving to us to simply go back into the position of stress again. And that's not what life is all about. Life is not a movement between what is stressful and what is relief. Life is not a movement between Monday to Friday, between our pain and pleasure. If we make our life this would simply be a cycling existence that would tire us, and then we will be simply done. To really get away from this cycle, to really not condemn yourself to this cycling existence, to this movement of stress and relief, we have to step back and see why we are really stressful, and are our reliefs really providing us the relief that we think they are providing, or we have simply assumed that they are really the point of relief for us.